Ever wonder what financial pitfalls keep even seasoned investors up at night? Well, today we're unpacking the sage advice of none other than Warren Buffett himself. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but wait, isn't Warren Buffett a bazillionaire? What could he possibly have to say that applies to little old me? Well, my friend, that's where you'd be surprised. You see, Buffett's success isn't just about his knack for picking winning investments. It's also about his uncanny ability to avoid the common money traps that so many of us fall into. And lucky for us, he's not shy about sharing his secrets. So, buckle up and get ready to take some notes because we're about to embark on a whirlwind tour of Buffett's top money warnings. By the end of this video, you'll be armed with the knowledge and the confidence to steer clear of those financial sinkholes and build the kind of wealth that would make even Buffett proud. Let's get started. 1. High-interest credit card debt. Let's kick things off with a big one. High-interest credit card debt. As Buffett so wisely puts it, I tell students, they will be doing better than 90% of the American public if they just avoid credit card debt. And boy, is he right. You see, credit card companies are like those candy bars at the checkout counter. They're designed to be irresistible with their shiny rewards programs and easy-breezy payment plans. But here's the thing. Just like those candy bars, the long-term costs of indulging in credit card debt can be way higher than the short-term pleasure. We're talking sky-high interest rates, ballooning balances, and a cycle of debt that can be tougher to break than a bad habit. So, how do you avoid falling into this trap? Well, for starters, treat your credit card like a tool, not a toy. Use it wisely and sparingly, and always aim to pay off your balance in full each month. If you do find yourself carrying a balance, make it your top priority to pay it down as quickly as possible, even if it means cutting back on other expenses. And if you're really struggling to keep your credit card spending in check, don't be afraid to take more drastic measures like freezing your card, literally, or even cutting it up altogether. Remember, as Buffett says, avoiding credit card debt is one of the simplest and most effective ways to set yourself up for financial success. Your future self will thank you. 2. Get-rich-quick schemes. Next up, let's talk about those oh-so-tempting get-rich-quick schemes. You know the ones I'm talking about. The invest in this can't-miss opportunity, or turn your spare change into a fortune overnight kind of deals. Well, as Buffett so eloquently puts it, it's pretty easy to get well-to-do slowly, but it's not easy to get rich quick. In other words, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. The reality is, building wealth takes time, patience, and a whole lot of discipline. It's not about chasing after the latest and greatest investment fad or trying to time the market just right. It's about consistently making smart financial choices, day in and day out, and letting the power of compounding work its magic over the long haul. So how can you resist the siren song of these get-rich-quick schemes? Start by being skeptical of any investment opportunity that promises guaranteed returns or overnight riches. Do your due diligence and research any potential investments thoroughly before committing your hard-earned cash. And most importantly, remember that slow and steady really does win the race when it comes to building wealth. As Buffett reminds us, someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. So be patient, stay the course, and trust that your consistent efforts will pay off in the end. 3. Pursuing investment trends. All right, my savvy investors, let's talk about another common money trap, chasing after the latest investment trends. It's easy to get caught up in the hype when everyone around you is buzzing about the next big thing, whether it's a hot new tech stock or a trendy cryptocurrency. But as Buffett warns, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. In other words, just because everyone else is jumping on the bandwagon doesn't mean you should too. In fact, more often than not, by the time a particular investment has become mainstream news, the real opportunity for growth has already passed. And if you're not careful, you could end up buying high and selling low, the exact opposite of what you want to do as an investor. So, how can you avoid falling victim to this herd mentality? Start by staying true to your own investment strategy and goals, regardless of what the crowd is doing. Do your own research and analysis, and don't be afraid to go against the grain if a particular investment doesn't align with your values or risk tolerance. And when in doubt, remember Buffett's sage advice. The stock market is a device for transferring money from the impatient to the patient. In other words, focus on the long game, stay disciplined, and trust that slow and steady progress will ultimately lead to success. 4. ignoring ownership costs. Now let's dive into a money trap that's easy to overlook: ignoring the true costs of ownership. As Buffett so wisely puts it, price is what you pay, value is what you get. In other words, the sticker price of an item is only part of the equation. You also have to consider the ongoing costs of maintaining and using that item over time. Take a car, for example. Sure, the upfront price tag might seem reasonable, but when you factor in things like gas, insurance, repairs, and depreciation, the true cost of ownership can be much higher than you initially bargained for. The same goes for investments. It's not just about the price you pay to acquire a particular stock or property. It's also about the ongoing costs and risks associated with holding on to that asset over the long haul. So, how can you avoid falling into this trap? Start by doing your homework and thoroughly researching the true costs of ownership before making any big purchases or investments. Don't just focus on the short-term price tag, consider the long-term implications as well. And when in doubt, remember Buffett's advice: only buy something that you'd be perfectly happy to hold if the market shut down for 10 years. In other words, focus on investments and purchases that will stand the test of time and provide real value, not just a fleeting sense of satisfaction. 5. Living beyond means. Let's talk about a trap that's all too easy to fall into: living beyond your means. It's a tale as old as time. You get a taste of the good life, and suddenly your spending starts to creep up to match your new lifestyle. But as Buffett warns, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. In other words, if you want to build real wealth, you need to prioritize saving and investing first and then adjust your spending accordingly, not the other way around. It sounds simple enough, but in practice, it can be tough to resist the temptation to keep up with the Joneses or treat yourself to the latest and greatest gadgets and experiences. That's why it's so important to have a clear budget and financial plan in place, so you know exactly how much you can afford to spend each month without sacrificing your long-term goals. And if you do find yourself starting to stretch beyond your means, don't be afraid to take a step back and reassess your priorities. Focus on the essentials, be mindful of your spending, and trust that true happiness and fulfillment come from living within your means and building a strong financial foundation over time. 6. Falling for status symbols. Speaking of living beyond your means, let's talk about another common trap: falling for status symbols. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that you need the latest designer handbag, the flashiest car, or the biggest house on the block to prove your worth and success. But as Buffett reminds us, if you buy things you do not need, soon you will have to sell things you need. In other words, all that glitters is not gold, and chasing after status symbols can quickly lead you down a path of financial ruin. So, how can you avoid getting sucked into this trap? Start by recognizing that true wealth and happiness come from within, not from the things you own. Focus on cultivating a sense of self-worth and contentment that's independent of your material possessions, and surround yourself with people who share your values. And when it comes to making purchases, always ask yourself, is this something I truly need and will use? Or am I just buying it for the status or short-term thrill? Remember, as Buffett so eloquently puts it, it's far better to buy a wonderful company at a fair price than a fair company at a wonderful price. In other words, focus on investing in things that will provide real value and satisfaction over the long haul, not just a fleeting sense of prestige. 7. Investing in what you don't understand. It's a common mistake. You hear about a hot new stock or a buzzy investment opportunity, and you figure, hey, if everyone else is doing it, it must be a smart move. But as Buffett so wisely warns, never invest in a business you cannot understand. In other words, if you don't have a clear grasp of how a particular company or investment works, you're essentially gambling with your hard-earned money. And that's a surefire recipe for disaster. So, how can you avoid this trap? Start by staying within your circle of competence. Focus on investing in industries and companies that you know and understand, and don't be afraid to say no to opportunities that are outside your wheelhouse. And if you do come across an investment that piques your interest, take the time to do your due diligence. Read up on the company's financials, research the industry trends, and seek out expert opinions from trusted sources. Remember, as Buffett reminds us, risk comes from not knowing what you're doing, So, the more you educate yourself and stay within your areas of expertise, the better equipped you'll be to make smart, informed investment decisions. And if you're ever in doubt, just ask yourself, would Warren Buffett invest in this? If the answer is no, it's probably best to steer clear. 8. Letting emotions drive financial decisions. Now, let's talk about a money trap that's all too human, letting our emotions drive our financial decisions. It's a tale as old as time. When the market is soaring, we get greedy and want to buy. But when things take a turn for the worse, we panic and want to sell everything off before it's too late. As Buffett so astutely puts it, we simply attempt to be fearful when others are greedy, and to be greedy only when others are fearful. In other words, if you want to be a successful investor, you need to learn to master your emotions and make decisions based on logic and reason, not fear or greed. So, how can you avoid falling victim to your own emotional whims? Start by having a clear investment plan in place and stick to it no matter what the market is doing. Don't get caught up in the hype or the hysteria. Focus on your long-term goals and trust the process. And when things get rocky, remember Buffett's sage advice. The most important quality for an investor is temperament, not intellect. In other words, it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about being disciplined, patient, and level-headed in the face of uncertainty. So, take a deep breath, tune out the noise, and trust that slow and steady progress will ultimately lead to success. Your future self and your bank account will thank you. 9. Forgetting tax implications. Let's talk about a trap that's easy to overlook, forgetting about those pesky tax implications. It's a common mistake. You make an investment or a big purchase, and you're so focused on the potential returns that you forget to factor in the tax consequences. But as Buffett reminds us, you should never make an investment decision based solely on the tax benefit. In other words, while tax considerations should definitely be part of your overall financial strategy, they shouldn't be the only factor driving your decisions. So how can you avoid falling into this trap? Start by educating yourself on the tax implications of different types of investments and purchases. Know the difference between short-term and long-term capital gains, and understand how things like depreciation and deductions can impact your bottom line. And when you're considering a particular investment or purchase, be sure to run the numbers and factor in the tax consequences alongside the potential returns. But at the same time, don't let the tail wag the dog. As Buffett so wisely puts it, never depend on a single income. Make investments to create a second source. In other words, while it's important to be tax savvy, it's even more important to focus on building multiple streams of income and creating a diversified portfolio that can weather any storm. So keep those tax implications in mind, but don't let them be the only factor guiding your financial decisions. With a little bit of knowledge and a lot of common sense, you'll be well on your way to building lasting wealth and security. 10. Neglecting personal development. Last but certainly not least, let's talk about a money trap that's all too easy to fall into: neglecting your own personal development. It's a common mistake. We get so caught up in the day-to-day grind of earning and saving money that we forget to invest in our most valuable asset, ourselves. But as Buffett so wisely reminds us, the most important investment you can make is in yourself. In other words, if you want to achieve true financial success and fulfillment, you need to be constantly learning, growing, and developing your skills and knowledge. So, how can you avoid falling into the trap of neglecting your own personal development? Start by setting aside time and resources for learning and growth. Whether it's taking a class, attending a workshop, or simply reading a book on a topic that interests you, make personal development a priority in your life. And don't be afraid to invest in yourself in other ways too. Take care of your physical and mental health, cultivate meaningful relationships and hobbies, and pursue your passions and dreams. Remember, as Buffett so eloquently puts it, the most important thing to do if you find yourself in a hole is to stop digging. In other words, if you feel like you're stuck in a rut or not living up to your full potential, don't just keep doing the same things and expecting different results. Take action, invest in yourself, and trust that the returns will be well worth the effort. So there you have it, the money traps you need to avoid at all costs. So what's next for you? Discover why the wealthy always win, or learn how minimalism can lead to maximal wealth. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more.